My love affair with the plump and juicy Filipino dumplings siomai began in a small Australian country town called Broome. It was there in the back of a local Filipino family's street food truck called Matt's Filipino Foods that I was shown the art to creating the perfect siomai. And for me, this is why I love street food so much. It's all about sharing recipes and eating together. In case you don't know, this is my tasty street food tour throughout Asia, where I'll be cooking some of the best street eats from my new cookbook. This is a book about street food. And if you haven't figured it out yet, our next stop is the Philippines for siomai with my addictive fried garlic sauce. So these dumplings are usually served with a side of soy sauce and calamansi, which is a cross between kumquats and wild mandarin oranges for that extra zing. But my favorite way to have them is with a fried garlic sauce with an extra kick of chili. Whether served as a hearty snack, a satisfying main meal, or just a fun addition to your dumpling party, Filipino siomai are perfect for all occasions and loved by everyone. So, shall we get into it? So first step is to work on the filling, and this siomai is filled with both pork and prawns. So we're working with 2 proteins today. And with any dumpling filling, I always like to start off with a meat mince of some sort, or any other mince. But my top tip would be to use a mince that, one, is fattier than usual, and also is coarser than usual. So what I mean by that is that when you go to eat the dumpling afterwards, texture is really important. You want something that's nice and juicy and plump. If you have a lean mince with not much fat in there, ground quite finely, what happens is it ends up being quite dry and gritty. So I've got my pork mince, that's gonna go straight into the bowl. Cool. And to make the Filipino siomai super tasty, I have some fresh prawns here with me. So I'm just gonna peel the shells off and chop them up into chunks so that we have that texture through the dumpling filling. What we don't want is to mince them quite finely and end up with the prawn being lost there in the pork mince. We actually want to taste them as well. So I'm just taking the head off. I'm peeling the shells off as well, just like so. And we'll set them aside and take the veins out of them afterwards. So you can buy prawn tails already shelled if you'd like. I just bought these from my local market, so I know they're fresh. And it helps to have a good fishmonger. It doesn't actually take too long to peel them. Okay, prawns are peeled. We're gonna remove the vein from the top. So basically the vein is the back part here. So you just slice down the middle, not all the way, just to open it up. So you can see in there, we're just gonna pull that vein out with a knife very carefully. Use your finger if you'd like as well. There you go. Get rid of that. And we have our prawn tail ready to use. So I'm just gonna repeat that process with each prawn. And actually, if you are working with whole prawns with the shells on, you can actually keep those shells afterwards and add them to a seafood stock because there's so much flavor in there. So you can fry them first just to intensify the flavor and then add a bit of liquid to make that stock. So if you're allergic to prawns, you could add double the amount of pork mince into this recipe and it'll still be really tasty. I just like the mix between the two. I think the savory pork and the sweet succulent prawns just makes for a really great combo. So that's the last prawn done. So we're just gonna chop them into chunks, about 1 centimeter thick. Then we're gonna add them into our pork mince. Just like that. Okay, straight into my bowl with my pork mince. I'm just gonna rinse my chopping board up really quickly. Okay, pork mince and prawns are in my mixing bowl. We're gonna also add to that some carrot. So I'm just gonna grate about half this carrot. It's quite a big one actually. I might just do about 1/3. Let's peel it first and we're gonna grate that. I'm just gonna grate the carrot. This is just gonna add some natural sweetness to the filling and give it a bit of body. Cool, so the grated carrot also goes into our filling. Next we have some spring onion. So I'm gonna work with about maybe 2 to 3 stalks. So we're just gonna chop that up quite finely and add that to our filling as well. Okay, spring onion is chopped, into the filling it goes. And then we also have here some shiitake mushrooms. And I love using dried shiitake mushrooms because they are intense in flavor and quite earthy. So to rehydrate them or soften them, as you can see here, they are quite hard. So all you have to do is basically boil a kettle or get some boiling water, pour them onto your dried mushrooms and let them sit for about half an hour to an hour to soften. So here are some that I've already soaked for about half an hour. So you can see the difference here. The dried ones here that are quite hard and dry, and then the wet ones that are soft and moist and can be easily worked with. So once we have rehydrated our mushrooms, we're just going to take them out. We're going to use about maybe 5, squeeze the liquid out. And I just like to trim off the stems because they tend to stay a little woody and quite hard still. We'll get rid of those. So once we've gotten rid of all the stems off the shiitake mushrooms, then we are just going to roughly chop them to add into our filling. There we go. Mushrooms are in, and that is all of our filling ingredients. So first up to season, I have some oyster sauce. This is quite a savory, rich kind of flavor. I love adding these to dumplings, especially for these Filipino siomai. Nice and savory, a little sweet and a little salty. We have some light soy sauce for saltiness. A tiny bit of sesame oil for that toasty flavor. Not too much. We don't want to overpower the filling. How I like to describe sesame oil is to use it as an essence. So a bit like you would with vanilla essence or anything that you just want the tiniest bit of flavor in there. And I wouldn't use it as I would any other cooking oil, basically. Some Chinese cooking wine, which is bitter, a little sweet as well. So it's all about balance here, just to give it a nice complex flavor. I have 2 types of pepper. So I have white pepper and black pepper. White pepper adds a nice fragrance to the filling. And black pepper is just a little more harsh, but it's going to complement all of those flavors in there quite well. A pinch of salt. And then to bring that all together and to bind, I also have some cornstarch. Okay, so I'm giving this a good mix, just bringing all those ingredients together. So it's already smelling really good. That oyster sauce is coming through, the fragrant spring onion and the earthy mushrooms. I can smell all of those flavors. If you guys are at home and you're not sure about the taste just yet, what you can do is fry off a little bit of the filling, give it a taste, and adjust the seasoning as you go. But I'm happy with that. So I'm going to set that aside and pull out my dumpling wrappers. So I know for the recipe in my book, I have said to use wonton wrappers. And if you can't get wonton wrappers, which is what I couldn't get today, I have some dumpling wrappers on hand. So these are just store-bought dumpling wrappers, as you can see. These dumpling wrappers are quite thick. And because we want these Filipino siomai to be really plump and juicy, I'm actually going to use my rolling pin to open them up a bit and make them a little bigger. There we go. So I'm set, I'm ready to form my dumplings. And before I do that, what I also like to have on hand, especially with siomai, is a little garnish. So I'm just gonna chop up some of this carrot to replicate those fish eggs or like caviar that you see at most dim sum places or dumpling places that are served on siomai. So to do that, I'm just gonna slice my carrot very thinly into rectangle slices. We're gonna lay them on top of each other, slice them into strips, then across the other way into tiny little cubes to mimic fish caviar. All right, I am happy with that. Let's get to the fun part, making our dumplings or forming the siomai. So I've got my dumpling wrappers ready. I have my filling ready to go. My steamer basket is also heating up. Another tip for you, I have my insert for the steamer basket here. And what we need to do before we put the dumplings in is actually line it so they don't stick. So I have some baking paper right here. What I do is basically cut a square piece of paper, just like so. I'm gonna fold it in half and half again. You reach a square, we're gonna fold that diagonally to make a triangle. And with that triangle, that is basically going to form our circle. So placing that in the center of the steamer basket, the point starts in the center, pressing it all the way up until the edge of the basket. And that is where I'll cut the paper to form our circle. And before we open this up to create a circle, we need to cut out small holes for the steam to come through. So my other trick here is to cut diagonally with the scissors. And as you can see here, it's actually quite easy. So you don't need to buy any specific liner for your steamer. All you need is baking paper and some scissors. All right, that looks good. Now time for the reveal. There you go, insert done. Straight into the steamer basket. Okay, let's make our dumplings. And to make the dumplings, I have my wrappers here ready to go. I have a smaller spoon, so a teaspoon. I just find it's easier to work with. So working with one dumpling wrapper at a time. So I'm forming my hand into a cup shape. I'm placing the wrapper on top. And basically the filling is gonna fall into there and the wrapper is gonna fold around it to form a bag or a cup, making that plump and juicy siomai. Quite a generous amount of filling goes into the center of the wrapper, just like that. So with my hand on the outside, I'm just letting the wrapper kind of wrap around and let the filling fall through. I'm rotating my hand at the same time, squeezing quite firmly to make sure the filling is nice and compact. So that is our first siomai done. So we're going to add that into our steamer basket, add some carrot on top to garnish, and repeat that process. So whilst I'm forming the siomai, I'm just making sure to cover the pastry with a tea towel or paper towel. What happens if it dries out is that it loses its pliability and tends to break or crack when we fold our dumplings. So make sure to keep the dumpling wrappers covered so they don't dry out. All right, last dumpling goes in. I'm gonna add some carrot on top of them. These are ready to go. So this steamer insert is gonna go into the basket, into the pot of boiling water. So we're gonna put them on for about 10 minutes, then work on our fried garlic sauce. Okay, let's make my fried garlic sauce to pair with our Filipino siomai. Super simple one. This sauce relies heavily on fragrant garlic being fried and that garlic being added to soy sauce, a bit of chili and sesame oil. So first step is to finely chop our garlic cloves, and don't be shy here, you can use a fair bit of garlic. All right, I'm just gonna peel, then finely chop the garlic. Get that on the pot with some neutral oil. So that means one with no flavor. Okay, garlic's chopped. We're gonna add that to a small saucepan or pot with some neutral oil. I wouldn't add something like sesame oil because it's too strong, or olive oil. So straight into the pot. Garlic goes in next. And on medium to low heat to cook for a few minutes, making sure not to burn the garlic, because if it does burn, it ends up being quite bitter. So we just want to release the fragrance, make sure it's nice, sweet, and savory. So this is quite a quick process, so it's definitely worth just staying here, making sure to watch it, keep stirring. You can already see it's starting to brown around the edges. I love fried garlic, it smells so good. So when you see the edges start to brown, I'm just gonna pull that off because it does cook a bit longer afterwards. We're gonna add that to a bowl here with light soy sauce, straight in. So I'm adding in some freshly chopped chili for a bit of a kick. I mean, you can use any chilies here, red, green, Thai chilies, depends on how spicy you want it. Okay, that goes in. And then finally, just the tiniest bit of sesame oil to add that toasty, roasty flavor. Cool, we're gonna give that a little mix, and that is our addictive fried garlic sauce done. We're gonna check on the dumplings to see that they're cooked and then get to plating up. Whilst I'm waiting for the siomai to cook, I'm just gonna slice off some of this extra spring onion for garnish. Not really necessary, but I'm just waiting and I've got nothing to do, so let's make it pretty. It's always nice to have a bit of green on the plate. Cool. So you can see here I have a fair bit of dumpling mix left. It is worth making a lot of dumplings at once and then freezing them. But if you're in a rush and you want to store this or use it for something else, you can put it back into the freezer if you've used fresh ingredients like I have today. Fry it off, add it to a fried rice, a stir fry, a centro bao filling. You could even make meatballs out of them and cook these and add that to something else as well. So I am just going to transfer this to my fridge to use later on. Okay, let's check on our siomai. I think they're cooked. So you might be wondering, how can you tell that they're done? The pastry has become slightly translucent. You can see the meat there has also changed color. It looks quite cooked. But to double check, I just like to take one out, cut in half, and make sure the filling is cooked through. It also should be quite firm at this point. So let's take one out. All right, let's cut this open to double check that it's cooked. Oh yeah, that's cooked. How good does that look? You can see the meat is cooked through, the prawn has changed color. So let's plate up. I'm gonna put the rest onto my serving plate. To serve, we have our Addictive fried garlic sauce. So a very generous amount, it's drizzled on top. And then to finish, that spring onion, which we sliced up, garnish. And there you go, my Filipino siomai done. I'm gonna put this in my mouth. All right, let's give it a try. That's good. And what I think sets a Filipino siomai apart from other dumplings is the perfect seasoning and that addictive garlic sauce that goes with it. So you can find this recipe in my new street food cookbook that's available now. Check out the link in the description to grab your own copy. Next week, we'll be heading to Mauritius, so subscribe to see what iconic street food we'll be making next. These wrappers are really good, the wrappers here in Taiwan. Australia needs to learn a lesson. I'm kidding.